The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskiy is due to meet the French President in Paris later. It comes after three-way peace talks that were meant to take place this week were postponed at the request of the US after the start of the war in Iran. With me now is Greg Sullivan, Bloomberg's Russia economy and government editor. So, obviously, Greg, tough times for Zelenskyy. He's doing everything he can to keep the war top of mind in Europe, but obviously there are other concerns right now. What does he say to the French President?
Right. This is a very important trip for Zelenskyy because, as you said, he is struggling to keep it on the top of minds of European leaders. It's diplomatically important, but there's also tangible things that he needs to secure. One, of course, is air defense. Zelenskyy is worried that air defense supplies will go to the Middle East rather than Ukraine as they continue to face Russian barrages overnight. The second, of course, is sanctions. Clearly, there's concerns over the energy situation given the conflict in the Middle East. And Zelenskyy is worried that sanctions will soften on Russia. Ukraine has warned that this war stands to actually benefit Russia as energy prices increase, helping their revenue. At the same time, loosening sanctions would clearly strengthen Putin's hand. So this is a key concern for Ukraine, and Zelenskyy has to get that on top of European minds.
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. Treasury Secretary putting out on X that there was only going to be a very minor, benefit to Russia from this particular waiver release. But there, as you say, there might be a huge move on sanctions just more broadly. Now, Ukraine also could potentially benefit a little bit from this war. Can it up the manufacture of drones and so on to send, or does it need to keep everything it can manufacture at home?
Well, it's very interesting because Zelenskyy has offered his expertise on countering drones to the Middle East. And it does appear that, there is some interest in that. Clearly, Ukraine has faced Russian barrages of drones in similar ways that the Middle East is now facing drones from Iran. And of course, there's been a long history of Russian and Iranian cooperation. Iran supplied the initial Shahed drones to Russia that were used in the war on Ukraine. Russia has now brought a lot of that production at home. They got a lot of the technological expertise from Iran to domestically produce those drones. So Ukraine does have experience here, and it is offering it to the Middle East.
Back to just the Russia coffers. I mean, where do they stand at the moment? Are they very depleted? And, how fast would we really need to see Russia get some benefit from the higher oil prices, from maybe, less of a discount to some markets and, just generally sanctions getting waived again? Because its ships are also stuck. They can also not go through the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, so the key question here is actually how long does this conflict last? How prolonged is the spike in energy prices? Russia has been facing an a budget problem. The spending has remained sustained very high levels because of the war in Ukraine. At the same time, they've lost a lot of oil and gas revenue. So their deficit has been widening, and that has been an issue that they've had to address. They're contemplating spending cuts to try to narrow the deficit. But if the elevated oil prices stands to benefit and increase revenue for Russia. Now, right now, the Kremlin assumes that is going to be a temporary boost, and so they're acting as if they need to cut spending, close the deficit. But if the conflict remains prolonged, that does stand to benefit Russia. So that there is the key question.